Hello, I'm going to go over some tips on how to use a calculator. Welcome. Okay, so first problem. We have a formula for a volume of a cylinder, and we want to make a calculation if the radius is 3 feet and the height is 7 feet over here. So then I want to enter that into my calculator. Typically, before I type something into my calculator, I write it on paper to make sure I'm going to get it right. And so I want to take pi, and I'll use the calculator pi in a minute. Often when we substitute, we put the number in parentheses to be safe. So the radius of 3 gets squared and then multiply by the height of 7. And there's really not much going on inside the parentheses, so I would say they're optional here. So that should give the same results as pi times 3 squared times 7. All right, so then calculator. A couple different calculators I'll play with. Desmos has a lot of different online calculators. You can also download these as phone apps or tablet apps. And so I'm going to go for the Desmos scientific calculator. So just search for Desmos. I recommend the calculator, scientific, for most classes I teach, unless we need to do a graph for some reason. And then I just type what I see. So there is a pi button on the calculator, and then I want to multiply by that 3 raised to the second power. Now here, notice they have a second power button, and this is an other power button. So I'm going to square that, and then I'm going to multiply that by 7. And so I get this answer here, 197.9203, which is kind of cool on the computer. I can copy and paste that if I wanted to into another application. So 197.92033-ish. So this appears to be approximately 190, I'm losing my memory, 7.92033. Number of decimal places depends on what you were asked to do. If you weren't asked, I usually go 4 or 5 decimal places on a problem. And I should get the same results if I use the parentheses. And I'm going to show a different calculator. Often you can just type calculator in Google and it pops the Google calculator. You can also, from a Google homepage, you can actually type a calculation in the Google search engine. So I could type pi times 3, the caret button, the shift 6 can be used to get an exponent, and then times 7. And Google says, oh, you want pi times 3 to the second power times 7, which is 197.92033, 7, blah, blah, blah. The same thing the Desmos calculator gave me. Google shows a couple more decimal places here. And similarly, I could type in here. So if I start typing, it clears the screen and starts over. So pi times, I could use the parentheses, 3, close parentheses, raised to a power, and in this calculator it's x to the power y, and then I indicate second power. Oops, that didn't work right. What happened? There we go. Second power, and then times 7. So there's pi times 3 squared times 7, which should give me the same answer I got before. All right, so a couple different calculators there. And we have an answer. By the way, since we squared the feet over here and then multiplied by feet again, this would be feet times feet times feet, or cubic feet, or feet cubed for the answer. Sometimes that matters. All right, next problem. Here we have the volume of a ball, and the formula is 4/3 times pi times the radius cubed. And I'm given a diameter of 19. And so I have a picture here. This is my best sketch of a ball, forgive me. The radius, the distance from the center to the edge. The diameter is the distance across the edge through the center there. So the radius is half the diameter. So my radius in this case would be the diameter, 19, divided by 2. Now, for a calculator, I could just leave it as a fraction if I wanted to, or I could do the division and turn it into a decimal. Now, sometimes decimals can be tricky depending on what you're dividing by. 2 is usually pretty good, right? So it turns out this could be, what, half of 19 should be 9.5, 9.5. I'm going to use the fraction method just because I want to go over how to type fractions in a calculator. So in my calculator, I want to find the volume. And the calculator, some calculators do have a fraction button like this and some do not. It just kind of depends. The thing to remember is a fraction bar is a division. So I could write this as 4 divided by 3 times pi times, in this case, my radius is a bit complicated, so I'm going to put parentheses and go 19 divided by 2, and then I'm going to raise that to the 3rd power. Some calculators show this as the division key, others show a slash. It kind of depends. So this could also be typed as 4/3 for divide, and then times pi, and then times parentheses 19/2, close parentheses, 3rd power. Parentheses are absolutely vital here because I want to cube the whole fraction. That should give me the same results as the decimal version. 4/3 times pi times 9.5 to the 3rd power. And again, I'm just using the parentheses here for safety. They mostly matter when you're plugging in a fraction or a negative number. Then the parentheses will matter more. So sometimes they're important, sometimes they aren't. So just use them all the time to be safe. All right, let's give this a try, see what we get. So I'll start off with the Desmos Calculator like before. When you hit the enter button on the Desmos Calculator, it remembers what you typed and gives you a new line to type. And I just want to enter 4 divided by 3. And notice it made a fraction. So then on my phone or screen here, I then have to hit the right arrow to get out of the denominator. Otherwise, I'd be typing in the denominator. Then I wanted to multiply by pi. And then I want to multiply by the radius, and my radius was complicated, so I need to put it in parentheses, and it was 19/2. Desmos gives me that. I need to, if I close the parentheses now, it puts it in the bottom. Oops. So I am going to, let's see, undo that. Yeah. Ooh, and it fixed it for me. So usually what you have to do is you're in the denominator, you have to hit the right arrow to get out of the denominator and then close your parentheses. And then you can use the power button and pick the power of your choice. In this case, it's 3. So I think I typed that correctly. I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to give me a number. So 3,591.364-ish. So let's see, I typed this version or that one up there. 3,591.64-ish. So let's try it with the decimal to see if we get the same answer. Oh, 364, got that wrong. Squeeze in a 3 here. All right, so again, now you can do things like, a lot of people like to calculate things in parts, but that can be dangerous. So if I type 4/3, then I get 1.33333, a whole bunch of 3s. They happen to go on forever, which is rather annoying. If you then say, let's just call it 1.3, then you're rounding ahead of time, and that's going to skew the results. So then if I tried that and then hit pi, and then watch, maybe I calculate that, and then I multiply by, oops. Oh, there's a previous answer button, by the way. So I can bring up that previous number, or I could just type it. Like maybe I'm gonna round it again, like 4.08. This is really bad what I'm doing right now. So I'm just gonna show you, you're gonna get the wrong answer. So I took the 4/3, I rounded it, then I multiplied by pi, I rounded again, and now I'm going to multiply by 19/2 raised to the 3rd power, and this time I get 3,498.09, which is the right answer. Is it this one or is it the one above? Well, I rounded 2 times to get that answer right there, so this one is incorrect. This is bad. Okay, bad, bad, bad. Don't do that. You can type it in one shot. So, trying again, it should be 4 divided by 3, right arrow out, times pi, times, this time I'll try the 9.5. If that's right, hopefully 19 divided by 2 is 9.5. Probably should check that.
raised to the power 3 and hit enter, and I get the same number I got originally, the 3,591.364-ish. Notice that all the way down to that 6th decimal, that matches the first way I did it up here, okay? But rounding intermediate steps is bad. It throws your answer off. You're compounding your error. Google Calculator, pretty similar. It doesn't have fraction mode. It just does division. So I just type it as I see it. So 4 divided by 3 times pi times parentheses 19 over 2 over is division. And then raise that to the power 3, and we should get the same answer. Now, Google has a few more decimal places. So where the 6th decimal was a 2, Google is saying it's 183, which would round that to a 2. Okay, so answers are different slightly just because of the number of decimal places the calculator shows. All right, getting better at using a calculator, I hope. So again, this gave the same exact answer because I was correct that 19 divided by 2 is 9.5. So that leads to that same result. Let's try another one. All right, so this one's a bit more complicated. I have an equation here for blood alcohol. And so my B, that big B right here, is the percent BAC. So for example, in a lot of states, the legal limit is 0.08. 0.08 what? Well, it's actually 0.08% of grams of alcohol in your blood to grams of total blood is what that is a percent of. So it's 0.08%, even though we often just say 0.08, it is a percentage. We just don't mention it when we speak it, which is kind of incorrect, but what the hell, that's what we say. N over here is the number of drinks. And W is weight in pounds. G is gender, depends on whether you're male or female. And then T over here is the time in hours since your first drink. So I'm just going to play around with this equation a little bit on a calculator. We would need information about this. So let's suppose, we'll switch to green, that we have a 150-pound male that had 3 beers and standard drinks. So like 3 Budweisers in a 12-ounce can would be a standard drink. You can look up what a standard drink means if you want. And let's hold off on the time for just a moment and just simplify this fraction right here. So if I rewrite that fraction right there, that's going to be 2.84 times 3 beers divided by the weight, 150, times the gender factor, which is for a man, 0.68. Now, something about this, now since none of these numbers are fractions or negatives, the parentheses are kind of optional. And this big fraction bar, remember, fraction bar is a division. So if we wanted to use the slash instead of that bar right there, or that division symbol, this one right here, since the numerator and denominator are complicated, they would have to go in parentheses for the top and bottom, either way. So if you have a calculator that doesn't have fractions like this, you would have to use the fraction, the division slash or the division symbol, and it would look like this. 2.84 times 3, whoa, pen freaked, 3, and then the denominator is 150 times 0.68, and same thing down here would look the same. 2.84 times 3, 150 times 0.68. So on a lot of calculators, you have to put the denominator and the numerator in parentheses if they're more than just a single number. Okay, and here I have a multiplication in the top, multiplication in the bottom. Parentheses are essential. Otherwise, you're not going to get the right answer. Let's check to see what this fraction is for this person with 3 beers. Calculator, please. Start off with Desmos. So now Desmos does have, when you hit divide, it gives you a fraction. So I could get away without parentheses here. So I hit divide first, that gives me a fraction. That would be like hitting this fraction button over there. And then I can type my 2.84 times 3 is my numerator, and then just click in the denominator or use the arrows to get there. This works similarly on a phone, and my denominator is 150 times 0.68. Let's see if I type that right. Yep, that looks about right. So Desmos says it's about 0.0835-ish. 0.0835-ish. So according to Google, this is approximately wavy equals 0.835. And it turns out, if you think about this number right here, if t was 0, like this is, you drank all 3 beers at once, let's say, so we haven't started counting time, this would be the initial blood alcohol level. So if immediately after a guy drinks 3 beers quickly, his blood, a 150-pound guy, his blood alcohol level is going to be just a hair over the legal limit. But as time goes by, that's going to drop. That's what this negative is for up there. All right, let's check on another calculator, make sure we got this right. So Google Calculator. Google Calculator does not do fractions, so I have to do parentheses for the numerator, 2.84 times 3, end the numerator with a parenthesis, divide to start the denominator with parentheses, 150 times 0.68 was the other number. Close your parentheses like a good math student, hit enter, and we get the same number, 0.38529, 0.38529, and it just keeps going. Okay, so when to stop is up to you for how many places you want, but I get the same exact number for either there. Okay, one more calculation, and then we will stop. I could enter that whole equation if I knew a time. So let's suppose we wanted to know an hour or two, let's go 2 hours after the first drink. What would it look like for this person right here? So new page, the original equation, b equals negative 0.015 times the time that went by, plus that fraction, 2.84 times n number of drinks over weight times gender. And we're going to do that 150-pound male again, and 3 beers, and 2 hours later. So plugging everything in to find their blood alcohol, negative 0.015, always write it down before you hit your calculator, times 2 plus, I'm going to use the parentheses version, 2.84 times 3 divided by 150 times 0.68 because it's a male. So that would be my full equation right there. And once I write it down, then I go to my calculator. And most modern calculators, you don't have to do this in pieces, just do it in one shot. So let's go to Desmos, or actually let's start with this one, why not? So negative here, some calculators have a negative button and a subtraction button, and it matters which one. So if my calculator had a negative button, I would click that. Google does not, it just has a subtract, which is sometimes used as a negative. 0.015 times 2 hours later, plus the fraction, numerator has to start with parentheses, 2.84 times 3 drinks, close the numerator, divide to get the denominator going with parentheses, 150 times 0.68, close parentheses. Look right. I think that looks correct. So this shows that after 2 hours from starting to drink, let's suppose the person took an hour to drink them, maybe. That doesn't matter too much, but a little bit. 2 hours after they started drinking and they had 3 beers, their blood alcohol content would be about 0.54, if we rounded to 3 decimal places, % alcohol in their blood. And that's grams of alcohol to grams of blood is where that ratio comes from. So let's make a note on the paper and check the other calculator. And the thing is, you just have to be a master of your calculator. 0.0534 if I went to no, that's not right. 3 decimal places, it was a 3.5, so I would round that to a 4. And again, that is percent alcohol in blood. That's grams of alcohol to grams of blood is the way it's formally calculated. Last check with the other calculator. In this case, let's see, I see a subtract, but I do not see a negative button anywhere. Pay attention to your calculator to know what's the difference. So 0.015 times 2 plus fraction 2.84, missed a button somewhere. Oh, cleared the whole thing. Maybe he needed to hit the undo button. Again, I guess I need to practice using this calculator. Try again. 0.015 times 2 plus fraction 2 point. And on your computer, you can actually type on the keyboard instead of the keypad to make things happen. Times 3 divided by 150 times 0.68. And if I click the right buttons, I should get the same answer as before. Now Google or Desmos does have a convert to fraction button, but you know, to say my blood alcohol is 91 over 1700 is not helpful. The decimal in this case is more helpful. Sometimes fractions are good, sometimes decimals are good, it depends on the problem. But I got the same answer as before. What's the point of this video is that you're the master of your own calculator, which means you have to practice using it. To write things down on paper, make sure you get it right. Thanks for playing with me. Take care. I will see you in the near future.